Can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been in terms of having challenges through the interview process? You know, a lot of times students are often nervous or don't know to expect what types of questions to pose. Can you share with folks, you know, what were some of the issues that you dealt with in the interviews and how you succeeded, you know, how you stepped through that process?
I was very nervous for my interviews. You know, when you're working on things like resumes, they're things that can constantly be changed, and you know you can edit them. But when you do an interview, it's all, you know, if you don't say it right the first time, you don't get a second
That's right.
chance. So I really wanted to be sure I had it down. How I prepared for my interviews was, well, first, of course, you know, I knew everything on my resume, and no one should be lying on their resume.
Right.
So, but I went and sat down with a senior who actually had been doing mock interviews. I did a mock interview
Okay.
with someone also, so that was helpful. She gave me a little bit of feedback, but I didn't really prepare for that because I didn't have interviews at the time of the mock interview. But there was someone who I knew, a senior, who was you know, successful in his search, had a job, and he was really good with mock interviews. And one other person and I went and met with him at his house, and we just sat down and he fired questions at us. And we gave him answers, and if we didn't know the answer, he said, okay, we'll come back to you. And he, you know, he talked to the other student. And that was really helpful because he said, all right, this is what you're doing wrong. Like, you got to stop saying, if you want to pause, like, don't say, and try to cut out your likes and just stupid things that you never think about.
Right.
Unless you speak it out. And so that was really helpful. And then the second thing that I did was I wrote down a list of all the questions that I knew were going to be asked, that were probably going to be asked. You know, things like, you know, like, when was the time that you worked in a team?
Right.
Like, what are your best and worst aspects of your personality? Like, those kind of things that are just basic questions. I wrote them all out, and I wrote out my answers to each of them. Just points that I wanted to be able to touch on if they were ever asked to me. And
Right.
some of those questions, I found out that even though maybe some of those core questions weren't asked, I could use a lot of the answers that I had written out in answers to other questions, and it really helped me become a lot more, like, flowing with my conversation. I didn't have to stop and think and, like, look unprepared.
Right.
I kind of knew what I was saying. So, you know, just having those answers written out and me being able to read over it whenever I wanted was a source of comfort before the interview. And also, you know, just the usual calming myself down, you know, making sure at the top of the page to write, slow down, don't say like or
Right.
you know, those kind of things are always helpful just to have something to look at to give you a little confidence boost right before you go in.
Okay.